looks like the path used to lead up to that cave.
Do you want to go in?
Can you get us up there?
I can try. Excellent.
Oh, bullshit! Bullshit! It's BigJackFilms here, and welcome back to the InuYasha V-Logs. My deepest apologies. We have not been able to put out as many V-Logs as we were planning to, but we've just had a lot going on our channel and in our lives that we finally kind of got our group back, so we're here to talk about 4 episodes. Holy smokes, 4 episodes, massive story arc, and it's pretty much wrapping up 3 members of the band of 7, leaving 1 left for the next arc. So let's go for it. This is going to be a huge set of storylines and compilations, which there's a ton in this arc. We're going through episodes 117 to 120, so let's get to it. Episode 117 has a really cool, dramatic, kind of one-shot episode where 2 members of the band of 7 are pursuing InuYasha, Kagome, and a wounded Koga from the previous set of storylines. In this one, we have our Bazooka band of 7 and the Tank band of 7, which I finally figured out their names, Rinkotsu and Ginkotsu. It took me forever because they all have those Kotsu names at the end. It was hard to keep track of all 7 of them. So Ginkotsu and Rinkotsu are basically pursuing our heroes. The heroes are trapped in a cave, and there's a huge river in between to try to get them out. And of course, Rinkotsu with the bazooka uses his flamethrower abilities to light the whole river on fire, setting our heroes trapped. InuYasha tries to take off, but he's distracted. He comes back. He feels bad. He left Kagome and a wounded Koga behind. Koga cannot fight Rinkotsu because he's wounded. Doesn't really have his jewel shards or anything. So basically, they're kind of fucked. Uh-oh, what do we do? InuYasha pretty much takes out Ginkotsu, the tank, and then leaving that with Rinkotsu, where they have their massive, sort of like a little cool fight scene, which allows them to get away, and eventually, it's almost like InuYasha's dead from the final fight with Rinkotsu. And obviously Kagome is crying, it's super sad, and Koga's trying to comfort her. Then, of course, InuYasha's alive, but it leads to one of the best moments of the show, where Kagome sees InuYasha and cries in his arms, and they hold each other, and Koga just witnesses this. And it's sort of at that point, I think for even Koga at that point, it was like, okay, Kagome's not into me, I gotta leave. It's time for me to let this go. He still has feelings for her, but he cannot really give in to himself to actually fully commit because she has chosen InuYasha. It's sort of that path right there. It's sort of like Twilight, where Bella finally chooses Edward, and Jacob's like, okay, I'm done. I gotta go. I gotta take off. So it kind of leaves it at that, and it's a really nice scene. The music by Karawanda is fantastic in this moment. One of the highlights of the show. I know a lot of people on YouTube and compilations really like this moment. Meanwhile, cutting back to Moroku and Sango climbing up Mt Hakurei, they reach this sort of archway, this sort of chasm that leads to a pathway into the mountain. So it's like, okay, well they can easily just hop up, right? No! Apparently Sango, in her shoulder pad, has a bat rope, a grappling bat rope that she can just swing and they get across. And at that point, I had to stop the episode because I'm like, okay, bullshit! When did they ever prepare for this? When did she ever need that? How does that function? How is that practical? How does it stay in that shoulder pad? That makes no sense. I was kind of taken out of it because at this point, Sango is just like Batman, where he's just got all the gadgets she needs for this episode. I was like Krusty in that episode of The Simpsons.
What don't you have in that belt?
Patience for harlequin hoodlums like yourself.
It kind of takes away from sort of the grounded, realistic logic in the show because, oh, we're stuck in this cavern, we can easily jump because we're ninjas at this point, but no, Sango's got to pull out a bat rope, and they have to climb it and swing it. I'm like, bullshit! bullshit. I was howling with laughter at that moment. So then we get to episode 18. Sango and Moroku are in the mountain, and they come across Kagra. Kagra has been in the mountain, so has Kana, and all of the villains have sort of kept it as sort of their secret base in Mt Hakurei. And as that's going on, there's demons, and they basically the heroes have to try to evade that. But obviously, with Kagra there and all of our villains rounded up in this one base, that means one thing. Naraku is in this mountain, and that's why nobody has been able to trace him for a very long time, not since the end of Season 3. Holy crap. So, with that said, Sango and Moroku are trying to get to the core of the mountain to basically purify the mountain from its demonic aura, its barrier. That way they can get in, take out Naraku. That's the long-term plan. So, obviously what's happening is that Moroku uses his wind tunnel to take out the demons, but some Yosho get into his hand, he's infected, and Sango is also knocked out, so he's there to protect his love. It's also kind of confirming that he's in love with Sango, like he's ready to die for her, and they're a thing. They are a couple. They are fucking off screen, basically. So, that all happens. They get away, of course. I think Kagra decides to take off as well, and the demons kind of stay still because of the barrier shit going on, because yes, the barrier protects the villains from being seen or present by our heroes, but because it's also using a barrier piece that isn't Naraku, it's also fighting against Naraku. So the demons cannot get our heroes. So our heroes take off into the core of the mountain, which leads us to something in the next episode. Meanwhile, InuYasha is like, okay, I gotta go after Sango and Moroku. I'm going into Mt Hakurei, and the barrier is obviously kicking his ass. But then, lo and behold, as he is cornered by two members of the Band of Seven, Renkotsu and Jakotsu, the night of the new moon happens, and he's part human, so he's vulnerable to them. So he tries to evade the Band of Seven, and obviously Jakotsu, who wants his head and wants to take weird sexual pleasure with it, and it leads into sort of this confrontation. InuYasha gets pretty bloodied up. Like, for a human, he's very vulnerable, and it's a very intense fight. So that leads into, of course, episode 19. Episode 19 has InuYasha and Jakotsu in this big, massive fight. Meanwhile, Sango and Moroku enter this temple within the mountain that's sort of the purification, the center core of this barrier, and come across a living Buddha, or sort of like a mummy named Saint Hakushin, who basically goes through this whole backstory about how he was a monk, he was a priest, he was trying to help people through famine, and eventually kind of gives his soul in where he becomes a living Buddha. But then recently, Naraku came to him and said, hey, humans treated you like shit. Hate them. Kill them all. Work for me. Make my barrier. Make my barrier around my mountain base. So that's what it all led to, is that Naraku had manipulated Saint Hakushin to make this barrier for him. Moroku and him actually get into a really cool, almost like a wizard's duel, where like they're both using their powers and their sacred sutras, and Moroku even uses his wind tunnel. It puts off a pretty interesting fight. Thankfully there's no Samyosha this time around. And the battle's pretty intense, and Moroku gets enough leverage to basically break the barrier. The barrier starts to evaporate, which means all the demons are starting to go scot-free throughout the mountain, which is leaving people like Renkotsu, Jakotsu, InuYasha, and everybody completely vulnerable to attack. So basically, it's starting to fall apart. Now, obviously, Saint Hakushin is still there, but he's starting to dissipate too. Like, he's starting to disintegrate and everything, because, oh shit, my barrier's gone. This is going to get pretty intense. Which leads us to episode 20. This is the final battle between four members of the Band of Seven, I should say, because Genkotsu, the tank, actually in a previous episode I forgot to mention, completely destroyed. He's dead. So now we got two members left outside of Bankotsu. Jakotsu and InuYasha get into their final showdown, and InuYasha, right at the verge of death as a human, Jakotsu does not kill him, and gets all cocky, and then InuYasha becomes half demon, gets the powers of Taiga, uses the wind scar, kills Jakotsu, leaves him for dead. It's pretty tragic for Jakotsu, because out of all of them, he seemed like sort of the, yeah, he killed people, but he was sort of the goofy, comedic young one, and it's really kind of sad that the kid has to kind of go at this point. Now you think, oh, InuYasha, please kill me, I'm done, just end my life, please, it'll just make me find peace, and InuYasha's like, now you live with it. You'll get back up and we'll fight again, and next time I'll kill you, because he's got more important things to do, like smelling the presence of Naraku in the mountain. So Jakotsu's left for dead, or left to be revived, but of course Renkotsu comes in, takes his shard, and leaves him for dead. So Jakotsu is dead, down to two members left. And you'd think that'd be it, right? Well, no, because then Bakotsu shows up and the two of them get into a final battle as brothers. It's honestly a pretty intense fight because you have Rinkotsu really finally showing his true colors to Bankotsu, just saying, I've been trying to kill you this whole time, you're a selfish prick, let's fucking go. But Bankotsu's like, no, you know what? Before I take your shards, let's test your ability. So he gives him the shards and gives him a fair fight. But it's no match because you realize, yeah, Bankotsu seems like a nice dude and all, but he's kind of fucked up in the head. He is completely a psychopath. He's a psychopath, and nothing is more terrifying than somebody who's a psychopath who has zero reactions to anything you do. So here he comes. He's just walking towards Rinkotsu. Rinkotsu's shooting his bazooka. He's no match, and it just leads to just a pitiful fight for Rinkotsu. All for nothing, all for this guy, and Bankotsu just comes off as the winner and a fucking asshole. So he's the last member of the Band of Seven, and he looks to the mountain and says, this is our final battle for my brothers, and he goes to face InuYasha, which will lead to the next arc. Meanwhile, really nice scene where Kikyo shows up to Mt Hakurei finally, comes across St. Hakushin, and pretty much purifies them, and leaves the mountain pretty much open, and it pretty much unlocks everything. The demons emerge. It's this big, oh shit moment for all of our heroes. And I mean it, all of our heroes are now centered at Mt Hakurei. They have it surrounded. Naraku is trapped. We don't know what's going to happen. Whether he's going to be more powerful or he's going to be weaker than before, we have no clue. All the demons emerge. It's this massive earthquakian cataclysmic event. It's gonna get crazy. Shit hits the fan. The pits of hell have been unleashed. And that's where we leave off for the next arc, where InuYasha and Bankotsu are going to have their final battle. This is the final battle for the Band of Seven next time. So what are my thoughts on this arc? It's a lot. It's a lot of plot, a lot of story, a lot of tying loose ends, a lot of wrapping up stories for these this really pretty impressive group of villains that kind of stayed as sort of place filler until Naraku was ready to emerge once again. But overall, these guys have left a lasting impact. I'll probably talk about the last member next time, but with the rest of the Band of Seven, I figured with this vlog, I would give them closure. The first few kind of sucked. The little guy, which I can't even remember, he kind of reminded me of Gildo from the Ginyu Force. He's kind of a screwball. He gets killed right away. There's the big, giant Attack on Titan-looking guy from the start of this arc. He was pointless. Then there was Suikotsu I actually really liked. He was probably my favorite next to Bankotsu because he's like Wolverine and he has the most tragic of the deaths. And then you have Ginkotsu, which is the tank-roaring Rush. He was kind of pointless. A really intimidating villain when it comes to like technology and advanced weaponry and all that stuff. He left an imposing threat. Jakotsu was, again, one of the better ones because he had probably the most storyline going on with the Band of Seven. And Rinkotsu was just a jerk. He was just an utter betrayer and I think led to the fall of the Band of Seven overall. It was like a game of Survivor, essentially. So all these characters have actually left a pretty cool impact, and watching it all the way through now, because this is sort of an era of the show where I kind of tuned in and out, I kind of appreciated these guys a lot more. They are a great addition of villains to the franchise. Would I wish they would come back in some way? Maybe, but they're just a lot to juggle, so maybe limit it to a few. But overall, these guys were pretty fucking cool, and they seem like just a group of like friends that just did really fucked up shit. It was sort of like The Devil's Rejects in a way. That movie with the serial killers directed by Rob Zombie. Good movie, by the way. The storylines in terms of our main characters are still kind of the same, although there is some closure with Koga finally letting Kagome go. Kagome essentially picking InuYasha, and on top of that, you have more intimacy with Sango Moroku. Their love essentially grows as they get up to the mountain. But overall, again, aside from just wrapping up a few stories and getting to the core of the mountain, we are at the heart of Mount Doom. It kind of just feels like a lot to juggle, and that's why this vlog took a little longer to put together, because I didn't know how long it was going to keep going because it just kept going and going and going. And again, I'm in uncharted waters, so I don't know when a story's going to go from beginning to end at this point. But I think I found a good pause here where, like, I can pretty much wrap up the rest of the members of the Band of Seven. That leads up to the next part that's going to wrap up those characters' storylines. And what's great is we're actually almost done Season 5, which is a major plus. So this arc, I'm going to give actually a solid 7 out of 10. This was not bad. There's a lot of action, there's a lot of adventure, there's a lot of drama, there's a lot of character development, there's a lot of character closure, and it overall kind of wraps up a lot pretty damn quickly in the span of 4 episodes. So I thoroughly enjoyed this one. So thank you guys so much for watching this InuYasha V-Log. We'll hopefully be back next time with the final showdown between InuYasha and Maghsoudi. But of course, if you guys want to support the channel, you can go and do so on our Patreon. Just $1 more will get you access to all of our content as well as other special features. And your funds will go towards our show and a potential InuYasha fan film down the line. So let me know your thoughts on this arc in the comment section below. And until the next video, be sure to like, comment, subscribe. I'll see you guys later. This is BigJackFilms signing off. And I'll catch you in the final battle with Maghsoudi. Take it easy.